Hello, Mr. Forbes. Today I'm going to present to you my project, which is Management Theory versus the Reality. I'll be using Chapter 1 and 4, and I'll be doing it for the respiratory therapist job. So here's my table of contents. So first of all, I'll be talking about what is a respiratory therapist. Then I'll be comparing Chapter 1 and 4 to the reality. I'll also do how I did my project, my conclusion, and my bibliography / works cited. So what is a respiratory therapist? A respiratory therapist has a very important role in the hospital. Respiratory therapists are certified medical professionals who specialize in providing health care for patients' lungs. They have advanced knowledge of the high-tech equipment used to help patients breathe and also the monitors that monitor them. Respiratory therapists work alongside nurses and doctors. There are many types of respiratory therapists. First, there are the emergency room therapists. This type happens in a hospital, more specifically in emergency rooms. The respiratory therapist provides assistance in the cases, and they also help people recover from heart and lung surgery in the post-surgery. They also assist in the complicated surgeries that occur and are the assistants of doctors who need information on the heart rate / breathing of the patient. The second respiratory therapist type is surgery respiratory therapist. In fact, they assist in the day-to-day surgeries. They will prepare the medicine and shots to give the patients before the surgery. They will also put the patient to sleep before the surgery and monitor the patient while the surgery is occurring. For example, they will monitor the heart rate and tell the doctor any important information during the surgery. Third, there are the adult and pediatric respiratory therapists. They will meet patients or go to their homes to take care of their respiratory problems and solve them if necessary. They will teach the patients on how to use certain medicine for asthma or any problem related to breathing. They can also install and teach them how to use their breathing machines. They basically help them to make their quality of life better. Now that I have briefly explained what is a respiratory therapist and their roles, I will analyze what is the management for respiratory therapists in the hospitals and what do they do to be more efficient. Because we all know that hospitals need first to be efficient, and second, they have a lot of pressure. I will be asking questions to a respiratory therapist, and I will see if the answers she gives me are the same as the theory learned in class. Continue exploring my video to know more about it. So, Chapter 1, which is management. In this chapter, we learn about the basics of management. For example, what is management, the management functions, what the managers do, and more. According to the management book that we use in class, some basic management issues are: how do we plan to get things done? How do we organize the company to be efficient and effective? How do we lead and motivate employees? How do we put controls in place to make sure our plans are followed and our goals are met? As we all know, management is in every organization, company, and institution. Every place where something or someone has to be managed. To be different, I wanted to see how management was in some place other than a company. So, a hospital. This is why I took the questions from the Chapter 1 and I asked them to a respiratory therapist. These are the questions and answers. So my first question: who would be the top managers, middle managers, first-line managers, team leaders in a respiratory therapist field? So, the top manager would be the general manager of the hospital. The middle manager would be chief of service of their respiratory therapist. The first-line manager would be assistant of the chief. And the team leader would be the technical coordinator. So what are their basic tasks and roles? So, for the general manager of the hospital, that's what he does. The general manager of the hospital is the whole hospital's manager. In fact, he is the manager of the respiratory therapists, nurses, doctors, janitors, and more. It is very rare that employees meet the general manager. They meet him or her when there is a major issue. Next, the chief of service of respiratory therapists. The chief of service of respiratory therapists is the boss of the respiratory therapist. A chief of service also takes care of everything that has to do with human resources. She is also the chief of service for many hospitals of the same region. In fact, she moves a lot. Next, the assistant of the chief. The assistant of the chief always stays in the same hospital. She is basically the chief's right arm. The assistant of the chief will take care of making supply orders and will take care of making the employees' schedules. Next, the technical coordinator. The technical coordinator takes care of teaching the respiratory therapists the new tools and machines that they receive. They're also the one that prepares the protocols for the machines. And if there's any change to be done, she will take care of it and will take care of training the respiratory therapists to use this machine. My next question was, what is good management and bad management in this field? So good management would be when managers listen to what the respiratory therapists have to say and they listen to their demands, because we all know that nobody knows a job better than the ones who work directly in the field. You have to consider employees, and when something does not go well, they must make sure that things will change. Good management also means that they respect employees and listens to them. Bad management in this field is not cutting the budget in places that can't be cut, and that will have a negative effect on patients. It is important that if they make a cut, they make sure that the patient is still okay. Also, an example of bad management that a respiratory therapist told me was that managers sometimes cut on an expensive product so they can get a cheaper product. Although the product is cheaper, it is still more expensive in the long run because the respiratory therapist must use more of this product. So, more gets wasted and the product is finished more quickly than the better quality one. Next chapter. Chapter 4. Pardon, I have a 5 in my slide. In this chapter, we learned all about planning and decision making. We learned about why they were very important aspects for succeeding. Planning and decision making is a big part in being a good manager. It is important that managers figure out problems and find solutions to fix them. In fact, it can be very hard to fix problems and find solutions to them. But this is what makes a good manager. But it is not always about problems. Sometimes planning can be to find ways to reach goals to make the company/organization more efficient. These are questions asked to a respiratory therapist about planning and decision making. So, first question, how do you plan for the day to make sure that everything goes well? Respiratory therapist's number one goal during the day is to follow the surgery plan, not be late, and make sure that all surgeries are done during the day. Their goal is also not to cancel any patients with surgery scheduled. To do this, the whole team must collaborate and no one can slow the group. Everyone has to work in teams and be ready to work and be efficient. Second question, what is an example of things that you do that proves that teamwork is necessary in your job? When in the operating room, everyone has to do their job. Sometimes there can be a surgery that goes badly. To make it go correctly, the respiratory therapist and the surgeon must make sure that they work in teams to solve the issue. For example, when a patient is bleeding very badly, the respiratory therapist will be the ones maintaining the patient by using medicine and blood. But, on the other hand, the surgeons also have to act quickly to stop the patient bleeding. Both groups have very important roles in the team for this case. Another example is that when nurses have a lot to do before surgeries, respiratory therapists will work with them to help them be more efficient. They will do a part of the work for the nurses. In these teams, in this job, teamwork, collaboration, and communication is very important. So the tools used for making the project, I'll go very briefly. I used a lot my book in management. I also used Wix to build my website. So to conclude, management is in every spheres of jobs. We learn it more for businesses, but we can see that every job, from being a person working a grocery or a respiratory therapist or a doctor, there's always management everywhere. Also, this is my bibliography. Thank you very much for having listened to me.